Just as people hoped for an end to Tory sleaze under New Labour, they also hoped Britain would play a decent role in the world.
The Labour government does not accept that political values can be left behind when we check in our passports to travel on diplomatic business. Our foreign policy must have an ethical dimension.
Whatever his party wanted, when it came to hawking weapons around the world, Blair took his cue from Mrs. Thatcher.
Aircraft are very expensive these days, and so you don't want them to have just one role when that one role is advanced training. So they're also being adapted for a strike capacity, a ground strike capacity, which is why you've got these on. So they're very good not only for advanced training, but for striking.
From day one, Blair cozied up to Britain's biggest weapons dealer, BAE Systems, and its chief executive, Dick Evans. A year into government, Blair yet again overruled his cabinet to rubber stamp BAE's sale of Hawk jets to Indonesia's dictatorship, which was ethnically cleansing thousands in East Timor.
This was Blair sending out a plain message saying, you can say what you want about ethical foreign policy, but I'm in charge of this government.
Yes.
And, you know, if we want to sell planes to dictators to bomb their civilian populations, we're going to do so.
The state of Africa is a scar on the conscience of the world.
That was almost Oscar-worthy, because even as he uttered those words, privately, Blair was persuading one of the poorest countries in Africa, Tanzania, to spend £28 million on BAE's military air traffic control system. Tanzania had no operational air force. Smelling corruption, one of Blair's ministers confronted her boss.
In the case of Tanzania, it couldn't afford this, and I was planning some tens of millions aid to pay for a big move to universal primary education. So if they went ahead with it, we were going to use British aid, that, in effect, to pay for this wretched, old-fashioned, useless air traffic control system. And I thought there must be corruption here. So it was a disgusting, disgraceful project, and Tony thought I was making a fuss about nothing.
But Blair was about to help BAE in a much bigger way, and not only them. The company had long been accused of corruption around the huge arms contract they signed with Saudi Arabia under Mrs. Thatcher. Called Al Yamama, the deal was worth over $40 billion. Dick Evans, at the time BAE's man in Saudi Arabia, had gone as far as eating sheep's eyeballs to drive the deal through.
Those of us who have examined Al Yamama are fond of remembering the phrase that was bruited about at the time the deal was cut, the biggest sale of anything by anyone to anybody ever. I mean, we are talking amazingly large amounts of money here. It's a matter of public record that there were vast amounts of sweeteners involved in this deal.
A close family friend of George W. Bush, the Saudi Prince Bandar alone was accused of trousering $2 billion. Blair blocked the publication of a parliamentary report on the deal, but the Serious Fraud Office uncovered damning evidence that could wreck BAE and reveal the Saudi royal family as little more than 40,000 thieves. At the heart of BAE's bribery web, the investigators discovered a shell company based around the corner from the Saudi embassy in London. Its purpose was to pay for anything the Saudis wanted, from gambling trips to prostitutes. The payments continued on Blair's watch. By 2006, there was enough evidence for a prosecution against BAE and its chief executive, Big Dick Evans.
The Serious Fraud Office had started an investigation into that slush fund, and Prince Bandar, of course, went into Tony Blair's office and asked him to shut down that investigation. So what did Tony Blair do? He acquiesced.
There was clear corruption. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming, and he just stops the inquiry and uses the national interest, card to stop it all.
Were you aware that your government was approving payments to a friend of President Bush's as part of British Aerospace's kickback system? And is that why you suspended a fraud inquiry?
I'm glad you're answering that question. A friend of mine.
One of the worst things Blair did, which may not seem as terrible as his killing of, his actions resulting in the death of 1 million people in Iraq, but the long-term effects could be even worse of his deciding that the executive, the Prime Minister, could stop a prosecution of BAE because it's not in the national interest or the security interest of the state to prosecute, which absolutely wipes out the rule of law.
I don't believe the investigation incidentally will have led anywhere except to the complete wreckage of a vital strategic relationship for our country in terms of fighting terrorism, in terms of the Middle East, in terms of British interests there.
That was Blair's take. This was Bandar's.
If you tell me that building this whole country and spending 350 billion out of 400 billion, that we had misused or got corrupted with 50 billion, I'll tell you yes, but I'll take that any time. What I'm trying to tell you is, so what?